tighten your lines as we get ready to sail the 7 seas on the Political Pirate Podcast. Join Captain Ted Yoho and the salty dog John Martin as they search far and wide for the greatest treasure of all, the truth. From local Florida news to nationwide stories and the globe beyond, we've got it all mapped out. Now here's your hosts, the salty dog John Martin and Captain Ted Yoho.
Well, good Friday morning, everybody, and welcome to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast with the old salty dog John Martin here hosting the show, and of course the captain of our pirate ship and steady at the helm, none other than Ted Yoho. Good morning, Ted. How the heck are you?
Doing great, John. It's great to be here. Still down here in the Florida Keys. Been blowing all week, but yesterday it calmed down, and today the water is flat. So we will go out fishing today.
Bent rods and tight lines today, right? Well, before we get into
those are mottos I love.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show, as I like to say, we got to make a few announcements here. The biggest one is about our sponsors, people that support the show. Make that call you see. Call Freddie. Become part of the team. Help us in our mission to educate, motivate, and activate people to save this country. And we got a sponsor I'd like to mention at the top of the show, and I'm going to turn it back to our captain to do that.
Glad to do it. Archer Automotive out in Archer, Florida. They're open Monday through Fridays from 7:30 a.m. till 5 p.m. Call for an appointment to make your transition through the service process quicker. It's 352-495-2485. And they service anything from the hood of the car to the tail lights, everything in between. And they've got a Sure Critic rating of 5 stars, favorably, that is. And call Richard and Joe down there at Archer Automotive for all your work. That's where we take ours. And I live an hour and a half away, but we just trust them and they're good people. Back to you, John.
Well, thank you, sir, and we appreciate all the support we're getting out there, and there's room for more on this ship, that's for sure. But, Ted, I want to talk a little bit about what's happening in New Jersey, literally, I'm assuming, as we speak, because it's been going on for about a week now. And the topic I kind of came up with is right to peacefully assemble. You know, the Constitution gives us that right. But I would have to say that the left has certainly abused that right and is in abusing that right. And I want to play a quick video.
Tell me that's not true. The left?
Yeah, the left. Imagine that. The progressive left, the leaders. It's really and truly, when we talk about the progressive left, that is the leadership now of the Democratic Party. There's no question about it. And I always qualify this. I'm not talking about every rank and file registered Democrat. I'm talking about the leadership of that party, who is controlling the party apparatus, and the message and the actions of the party is without a doubt the progressive left, which is made up basically of Islamic fundamentalists, it seems like. They're certainly
it's gone that way. And let me interject here, if you don't mind, because, you know, we talk a lot about the Democrats and the left like they're all one. There's a whole group of people that they're Democrats registered. They don't subscribe to what's going on with the videos you're going to show, or the so-called leaders of the Democrat Party, which is the Democrat Party is gone. As you said, your dad was a Blue Dog Democrat. He was a great legislator, did a lot of good work for the state of Florida. But what you have in Congress today, you have those people that are still part of that old Democrat Party, but they're being weaned out and run out. What's left are the socialists, the Democrat Socialists of America. That's who's running this party. So I'll turn it back to you, John.
Well, Ted, I agree with you 100%. I would put one extra layer on top of that, though, is that even though I'm not talking about just everyday rank and file voters of the Democrat or registered as Democratic Party, I will say this. I will hold them accountable in the sense that they are responsible if they don't. I mean, you change parties or whatever you want to, no party, that's a personal decision. But the way you vote is emblematic of that. So and I agree, there are millions of people like that, but if they either sit on the sidelines or continue to support Democrats that are running for office, they're actually supporting the people that we're going to be showing in this video, whether they want to or not. That is the reality of the situation.
Well, John, you brought that out very well. And we made that distinction. Just because they're a Democrat doesn't mean they belong to liberal progressives. However, if they sit on the sidelines or if they keep voting those people in, the people in Brooklyn that vote in AOC, or, the people that vote in the communist council person in Albany, New York, yeah, you are part of that. Even though you may not talk that rhetoric, your actions are supporting that, and it's detrimental to the survival of this nation.
Yeah, I think we'll see some indications of, and when I say this, I'm not saying that necessarily it's going to happen, even if it's a big turnout, but we're about to have a primary in California where both the mayorship and the governorship is on the line, and you've got some solid either Republicans running in the gubernatorial race, and you got a guy who is in Mr. I think his name is Bratton, who is running for mayor, and LA is 4-1 Democrats because a lot of people have left LA. Spencer Pratt, yeah. So, I'm not saying that him winning or losing is going to be the telltale, but if that race is not either for him or extremely close, then that tells me that at least out in the Golden State, that the Democrats aren't getting the message. That's the ones I'm trying to talk to. If you're a registered Democrat, forget the leadership for a minute, and you don't either, as Ted just kind of reiterated, if you're standing on the sidelines or you're continuing to think that by voting for the Democratic leadership, you're doing your duty to the country, you're voting to fundamentally change, and I would say destroy this nation.
You really are. You've got two. I mean, it comes down to three things. You can say, I could have voted that way. I should have voted that way. Or you can say, I'm glad I voted that way. And put an end of this continually decline of America by voting in the socialists and the people that want government to be the solution. So, yeah, you've got those three things after the election. You'll look back. I could have, should have, and we're glad I did.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to play a quick video. Now, this is from a few years ago during the riots, the George Floyd riots and all that. And I want you to see what this reporter is reporting about the mostly peaceful protests, and we'll come back and talk about it.
I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not generally speaking unruly, but fires have been started, and there's a crowd that is.
And Johnny's back.
Yeah, I had to turn the AC down. I mean, we are in Florida after all, Ted, and it's beginning to warm up a bit here. But you saw that video. You had that reporter. And to me, every time I see that, I laugh and I get angry, and I'm terrified at the same time. Because here's this guy looking in the camera saying, well, while the protests are mostly peaceful, there have been fires started. The whole block is on fire. I think it was the 3rd precinct there, and I think that was in Minneapolis, literally burnt to the ground, and the police officers had to fight for their life. But it was mostly peaceful, Ted.
At the taxpayer's expense. And that was the MSNBC. And he starts that interview by saying, let me make sure I get the narrative right here. This is mostly peaceful. I didn't see anybody out there making s'mores or roasting marshmallows or cooking a hot dog on a stick. They're in denial. I mean, that is a riot, and it was a very dangerous riot. A lot of people got hurt. Hundreds of millions of dollars of property damage. Not just there, but you pick your Democratic enclave around the country: Oregon, Washington State, Philadelphia. They're all the same.
Yeah, well, Ted, you and I both agree on this. We're staunch supporters of the U.S. Constitution, and it says clearly in there that you have the right to peacefully assemble, to redress your grievances and all of that kind of stuff, to have your voices heard. So I'm not in any way, shape, or form disputing that. But I ask you a question, Ted. When was the last time the Democratic Party or any of their organizations actually had what you'd call a peaceful assemblage?
I think the last time I could say they did was when they had the feel-good session out there in California to do their re-messaging. I think there's a lot of hugs going on out there. John, I don't know of any. If you look at the protests going on, now you can go back to the Democratic Convention in the 60s where they tore up, I forget what city, it might have been Detroit back then. And then you look at Republican conventions, I'm sure there have been some violent ones, but I sure don't recall them. And then you look at all the Tea Party rallies around the nation. I never saw one report of fires, people going around looting, things like that. But you see it consistently with the people on the left, the progressive liberals, and they've only have gotten more radical here in the last since the advent of Obama.
Well, Ted, I would ask our audience this question, and maybe they disagree with me, so I'll ask them a question. Tell me one major U.S. city that is controlled by Democrats that you would feel comfortable with your family, your wife, your kids, grandkids, or whatever, walking down the main blocks or something at like 10 o'clock at night. Can you name one? I challenge people. Name me one that you would feel comfortable doing that. And I mean, I've walked down some pretty rough streets. Of course, I'm getting a little older now, but I wouldn't want to do it right now, at all by myself. But, name me one and put it on Facebook. Name me one Democrat city that you would feel comfortable, major city, walking down the street with your family at 10 o'clock at night, or even 8 o'clock at night for that matter.
Yeah. I mean, there's very few like that. And it's a shame. And it goes back to rule of law, respecting other people's rights, and being personally responsible. And we've gotten away from that. And, before the ship can be righted, and what I mean is the ideal of America, where you can achieve the American dream. Before that can be righted, there's going to be some tough times. And we're seeing that chasm between political ideologies becoming wider. It's becoming more vocalized, and it's becoming more toxic in the sense that, the hatred that's out there. And usually there'll be an inflection point or a fire shot at Concord that started the Revolutionary War that was caused, according to AOC, by billionaires. So something like that will happen. And unfortunately, that would be the unfortunate thing. Let's hope that doesn't happen.
Well, Ted, I want to play a video, and this is from just a couple days ago in New Jersey, where basically this ICE detention facility has been, if it weren't for them putting up a fight, I'm talking about the ICE agents, the whole place would have been burned to
Rose up
the ground, in my opinion. But check this video out, and I'll tell you.
Every cop, every fed, shoot yourself in the head.
Fuck you! Seriously now! Did you kill yourself?
Every cop, every fed, shoot yourself.
I don't know if you can hear it, but in the background, they're chanting at the ICE agents who are just doing their job. If you agree or disagree with ICE is a separate issue, but they are just obeying orders and doing their job. And you have people literally chanting at police officers, which is what they are, to shoot yourself in the head, calling for them to commit suicide. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Ted?
That's a sick society. That's a sick branch of our society. And you notice they've all got goggles on, and a lot of them had Palestinian headscarves on. And there's no room for that in America. Is that a peaceful protest? I don't know. I think it goes beyond that. Certainly the rhetoric is not peaceful. And again, you got to wonder, why is ICE there? You got to think, cause and effect. You got ICE detention facilities because of the disaster that that the Biden-Harris administration did under Alejandro Mayorkas, and they caused the problem. This is what happens when you have poor leadership at the top. It is going to be ugly to fix these things up. It's the same thing that happened with the USAID that was started under President Kennedy, that started off as educational, humanitarian, agricultural assistance in poor countries. It morphed into this big thing that was a mess. And so they tore it down, and the people on the left went absolutely crazy, gnashing of teeth, turning their heads. But there's only one way to get rid of it. You have to do it now. And this is what's going on here. And, you know, I just pray for the people, the ICE agents, that, you know, they get through this okay.
Yeah, well, Ted, you know me, I actually, and you've seen me talking to people on the streets at some of these types of things.
You're good at that.
And I genuinely don't try to put my politics into it. If I answer questions, if I'm asked, but I really and truly want to hear the reasons why they're there and all of that kind of stuff. Because, you know, I'm open to debate. I'm open to peaceful assemblies. I mean, debate about what we do. But when you got people chanting things like, quit your job and kill yourself. I mean, literally hundreds of people chanting that. When there was one video, and I just didn't want to put it on. It's too graphic for anyone, really. But you have a guy going up to an off ICE agent at night, literally shouting at him, "I know who you are. I know where you live. I will kill you, and I will kill your wife, your children, your entire family." And he kept yelling that in this officer's face. And I got to say, man, I'm not a violent person, but I believe I might have taken that dude out. I'm just saying. Well, maybe that's why I'm not a law enforcement guy.
That's a threat against your person. And the way I understand stand your ground laws is, if that is a threat against your person and you're convinced it's real, you're justified to do that. But in New Jersey, who knows? But in Florida, I wouldn't recommend that for those protesters to do that, because you just don't know. That guy could pull out a knife or a gun and shoot you right there. This is where it's just society has gotten so warped that the protesters, where are the Democrats speaking out against this? I shouldn't say the Democrats. Where is the liberal progressives that are supporting this? Where are they speaking out against this? And the other thing, John, is they were all shouting this in unison. So I wanted to, where do they go for rehearsals? Where do they go to get their banners? Where do they do their practice? And did they get a permit to do that? I don't know. I mean, it's nonsense. This is all staged. It's not organic. There's somebody pushing it behind it, whether it's China, whether it's Roy Singham, the guy that's a Chinese multimillionaire supporting this, and he's married to the lady that started Code Pink that went to Cuba. These are the people that are promoting this, and the George Soros and his son Alex now has taken over, who's more radical than his dad. Yeah.
Well, they claim to be protesting because the inmates in there are doing a hunger strike, and most of that's been debunked. But, you know, I asked Ted, when is enough? Okay. I want to play a video. It's a little bit longer than we normally play. It's a little over a minute, but let me set this up. This shows the overall confrontation, and then there's a truck driver that's trying to get through there with what appears to be a garbage truck, and they basically stop him, and then he confronts them about it. So let's play this, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Go and get locked up! Huh? What am I doing? Am I bothering y'all? Huh? If I hit one of y'all, I go to jail, right? Go, I go to jail. If I hit y'all, go to jail, right? Come on! What's wrong with y'all, man? Come on, man!
I mean, Ted, here's this guy caught in the middle of this, just trying to work. And as I was telling you kind of off the air, there's another version of the video, another angle where you have people who are actually trying to, they're not part of what, Antifa or whatever, you could tell. They're there to, I guess, peacefully assemble. And they're trying to explain to them that this guy's just trying to do his job. They're not ICE agents. Let them pass. And basically they are dismissed out of hand, and they're kind of bewildered because they're actually on the side of the protesters.
Well, yeah, they're on the wrong side. You brought up Antifa. Understand, Antifa is the modern day brown shirts of the Nazi party under Hitler. There is no difference in them. They were there to foment protests and fights and things like that. I got accosted by them. Of course, we saw Rand Paul did too. I mean, they got right up in our face, and it was an ugly scene. Nothing happened, which is good. But go back. When did this era of this kind of protest start, John? I mean, you're in your gray-haired years, and I'm in my no-hair years. We've never seen this before. Constantly. I mean, you had the different things that happened, and the different riots that happened, the LA riots and things like that. But they weren't a continuum like we see now. This is anything associated with the left progressives. This is their normal mantra. And if you go back a couple of weeks ago when we played that AOC video where she's behind a bulletproof glass in the South, she was spewing hatred. She was spewing fighting. Bernie Sanders, Hakeem Jeffries, they all do that. And I don't remember our politicians being that constantly saying that.
Yeah, and if you're actually trying to bring about real change, it doesn't work that way. If you look
where's
at
the Martin Luther King?
If you look at Martin Luther King, and of course he admitted he was inspired by Gandhi and all of that kind of thing, that violent protest doesn't really convince anybody. No. And if your job is to convince people, it's not working. But see, I don't think that's what they're trying to do, Ted. I think they're trying to make the thing so chaotic and that people just say enough is enough. I'm not supporting Donald Trump because I just want things to go back to some kind of sense of normalcy. I think that's one of the reasons why, and we could get into fraud and all that. I'm not even going down that because it doesn't matter today. It's too late. But one of the reasons why Donald Trump lost the election is because there were people who simply wanted to return to some type of normalcy. And I think the Democratic progressive operatives know that, and that is why they're doing this. It has nothing to do with the people inside that facility. It has to do with chaos, and chaos is a strategy for them.
I want to believe you on that, and I want to hope that is true. But I think we've moved beyond that, John, for this reason. You look at, to go back to some type of normalcy, I think we all want that. But if you look at what the modern day liberal progressives, socialists, communists, whatever you want to call them, what is their normal? It's Tampon Tim putting tampons in boys' bathrooms. It's okaying men being in women's bathrooms and sports. It's doing, all the transgender stuff and saying, you're right, you are a woman, but you're trapped in a man's body. And it's not your fault. We can give you. So that's really what they're putting out there as normal. And then they attack the Christian conservatives as being the domestic terrorists. So their normal is not normal. It's abnormal, but they want to instill that upon the rest of America.
Yeah. Well,
that's why I say we've moved beyond that.
Yeah. I agree with you in what you're saying, but my point is I'm not talking about this communist. I'm talking about just everyday Americans just want to return.
Absolutely. We want some kind of normalcy.
Trucks afterwards and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. But here's the question I got for you, Ted. At what point, we saw these videos, and I would encourage people to watch others because there's some that are much worse. At what point are agents obligated, talking about ICE in this particular, but police as well, to actually stop this kind of stuff. And I hate to say it this way, by any means necessary. At what point is it a public safety issue and they are literally obligated to take whatever action is necessary to stop it?
No, and I think the protesters, as we've talked about before, large majority of those are useful idiots. They're being used by the people that really want to foment this. Now, who wants really to see the destruction of America? China, Russia, Iran, any despotic run country wants to see America fall so that we can't dictate rules and norms and put sanctions on people around the world, which I don't think we should. I think we should mind our own business more. And so I think those are the people that really benefit from that because they want to tear down this country. The people out there protesting, they're the useful idiots. But at what point do the agents are obligated to use any means necessary? Threat to your person. And, that's when the shooting starts and you'll see mass protests and it'll be ugly if that happens. And I hope we don't ever see that, John, in our lifetime.
Well, Ted, we just had a few days ago one of these teen uprisings or whatever in Chicago where 5 police officers in Chicago were injured by a young guy coming through them with a car and knocking them down. And of course, when something like that happened in Minnesota, a lady unfortunately was killed. But I mean, would the police officers be right to take that person out? That kind of thing.
Absolutely. I think so. But,
yeah, I mean, I feel for them, man. We're by us. When I say us, I'm talking about the American people not standing up and saying enough is enough for this crap. We're actually putting us closer to police officers being killed and injured and them having to take action to defend themselves, which could kill Americans. But I think that's what the hardcore left wants, Ted.
Oh, it is. Well, it's the people driving that hard left core agenda. That's what they want. Go back to the guy up on the Capitol that got hit by the Subway sandwich. What was his retribution? What happened to that guy? He went to court and they dropped the charges. Look at those teens they weren't even teens. They were adults in New York City during the winter when they were throwing the ice and the snowballs at the police and hitting them. And that gets a pass too. So then the next progression is you go to what you just said. So it's escalating without any accountability. And you played that one, it was a couple months back, where the mother went and caught her kid at one of those protests, and she gave them a talking to. More parents need to do that.
That was in Baltimore.
Yeah. And it was a black woman and her black son. And she says, what are you doing? And that's where it starts. That's where it needs to be held accountable, is responsibility. And then you look at what's happened since the Great Society. You went from 75, 80% of all marriages, especially in the black community, were a 2-parent household. Now today it's less than 40%, I think it is. So yeah, you've got to break down a society because of a government program.
Yeah, well, we're running just a little bit longer than we normally in this segment, but I want to play one more video before we go to break, because my question is, when will this end? And I think we see at that time, the vice presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, leading up to the 2020 election. She was on the late Colbert show, so to speak. And I want to play this and listen to what she says. She's talking about it's in the streets. Check this out.
I want to make clear that I know that there are protests still happening in major cities across the United States. I'm just not seeing the reporting on it that I had for the first few weeks.
That's right. But they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. And this is a movement, I'm telling you. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not.
Well, there you have it, Ted. Kamala Harris, thank God she made it no further than vice president. Wish she hadn't got that far. But she's saying that the riots, this is right before the 2020 election. This isn't like October. She's giving this interview before Biden won the election, however you want to label it. And here's the thing. She says they need to continue the riots even after the election. But what happened after the election and Donald Trump left office? The riots magically stopped. Sure. And why is that? Because the people that were orchestrating them were happy with the results.
They were. And then and so where's the conservatives out there rioting? Charlie Kirk was the one that was out there really pushing against this in a peaceful way, and he gets assassinated. They don't want, their normalcy is what we just talked about. It's Ralph Levin as your HHS secretary, or that Sam Britton, the guy in charge of spent nuclear waste. Red lipsticks and the dress, bald-headed, gets picked up for stealing luggage at the airport. But they normalize all that, and so that's why the riots stopped, because they could push the needle further and further to destroy America, and they can't stand what's going on. And so as long as conservative agenda is in there that is unrolling the nonsense of the last 8 years of Obama and 4 years of Biden, as long as we have a conservative pushing back against that to get back to normalcy, they're going to riot. But when they're in power and they can destroy America, everything's hunky-dory.
Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet, complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, plus you can enjoy bottomless mimosas and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
And we're back to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with the old salty dog here, John Martin, and the captain of our pirate ship, none other than Ted Yoho. Ted, we just heard from the old ball coach about Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Tell us a little bit about it.
It's a great place to go to eat, great food, great service, and it's a memorabilia museum of the Florida greatness in sports. So go down there, have a great time, and if you're lucky, you may see the old coach walking through there shaking hands. And don't forget to call Archer Automotive for all your automotive needs. 495, that's 352, 495-2485, 20 years in business.
Absolutely.
John, back to you.
Well, you know, the Iran war, it's kind of interesting, Ted, that we keep, and we talked a little bit about this on Monday, but President Trump, and I understand it's kind of his negotiating tactic. He kind of is, you know, smoke and mirrors a little bit. I don't mean that negative. He's like, makes you go this way and that way, and he's trying to keep it kind of turmoil until he gets exactly what he wants, and he's not going to let you know that he has until he's ready. But the Democrats are pushing a line that the president has basically might as well surrender. I want to play this video from Representative Seth Moulton. He's from Massachusetts. Listen to this, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Sure.
It's a surrender document. And Trump, who started this war with no plan to win it, no plan to end it, and demanded Iran's unconditional surrender, now seems to be negotiating America's unconditional surrender to Iran. This is not a deal. It's a surrender document.
He says that President Trump has basically unconditionally surrendered or needs to negotiate that, the unconditional surrender of the United States of America. I mean, Ted, I'm always speechless when I hear that. What are your thoughts on that? Help me.
Oh, it's just talking points. He's wanting to get clicks on there, and I think you'll probably see him maybe even enter the presidential race. It's a mess. I grant it. Should we have ever gone in there? I mean, history books are going to have this written down, you know, and analyze this and chop it all up and do the postmortem on there. But for an American representative to say we've surrendered, it doesn't help the negotiation. We need to stand lock arm. We're in this. I disagreed with us going in there. We've seen too many times how going into a Middle Eastern country works. Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, all these other countries we've gone into. It's not our fight. Saying that, Iran's been chanting death to America for 47 years, and they've got 60% enriched uranium, enough material to where they could make 10 to 20 bombs, and they have ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. So we were at a point where a decision had to be made. Now that decision is made, we need to finish it. And, there's going to be death and destruction, unfortunately, more than there's already been. But it needs to be brought to an end. You can't negotiate with these people. We've seen this over and over again. My 8 years in Congress, I saw it. I followed Iran since the oil embargo. You cannot negotiate with terrorists. And, so the problem here is Trump has done a poor job. He's done a good job with NATO, calling out the shortfalls of NATO, but we need to build relationships with other countries to really bring this to an end at this point in time, or this is going to linger on. And then you look at the fallout, they're going to come back. Are they going to be any nicer when they come back? No, not at all.
Well, there's an interesting tidbit of news that came out a couple days ago that really didn't get a whole lot of attention, but I found it kind of fascinating and trying to figure out exactly what it means. Because, Iran has basically been under an internet blackout, some of it intentional by Iran itself, and some of it because of some destruction that's done, and that type of thing. But there are reports that the Iranian government is actually opening up the internet access, that it's becoming more and more where people can actually see it. And I have a theory about what this means, but I'd like to hear what your take on it, if you have one. I'm sure you do, and then I'll kind of give you mine. Go ahead, Ted.
Sure. You're seeing limited access brought back so they can start calming and saying to the people of Iran, we're bringing this back. But like you said, a lot of it was torn up, the infrastructure. And so they're making baby steps like they're doing the right thing. The other thing is we've seen this in Cuba. When Cuba shut and did a blackout on that, and you see this in despotic nations where they cut down the internet so people are kind of out in the darkness and don't know what's going on in their own country or in the world. And I think this is something that they're showing that they're playing somewhat nice. And I think they're doing it also to have that negative narrative going against the United States and Trump, that there's people in America that don't support what he's doing.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on with all that. But I have another feeling.
I figured you did.
Why? And I hope that I am wrong about what I'm about to say. But, one of the things that has been a strength, if you will, about Iran and made them harder to deal with in this war is they planned ahead of time to basically, if you cut off the head of the snake, like we did, they were going to compartmentalize, and each little group around the country kind of act independently. They had a plan for that. And it's worked to a certain extent. I give them militarily, it was a pretty decent strategy. I don't know if it helps the Iranian people, but here's what I'm concerned about. And again, I hope I'm wrong. Could it possibly be that they have to expand the internet so that they can begin communicating with each other? And the result will obviously be some of what you talked about will happen. But are they potentially doing it so they can make one big unified push? In other words, one big shoot everything in all the different oil fields, whatever, try to hit our people. In other words, they know they're going to get whooped. Will they organize for one big blitzkrieg of stuff? That's what I'm concerned about.
Well, they can, but I would assume they've got walkie-talkies, two-way radios, and satellite phones for those people that are in the power structure. I don't know. It's going to play out, but I do know this: it will not come to a resolution until one side loses. You can't give up and just say and retreat. You can't do a poor deal because it's going to come back. It has to be brought down like Japan and Germany did. They have to beg to stop, and they're not at that point. And when you have religious ideologists, the Islamic ideologists, they don't do that. It's till death. And it's an ugly thing. I think we should just wall them off somehow. You know, we've tried to do that with sanctions and all that, but other countries are going to cheat. People are going to cheat. People in our country cheat, you know, because it's the money, the money. And, you can do sanctions, but people work around sanctions, and a lot of people make a lot of money. And to them, it's okay. They don't think about the moral ramifications of that.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a James Bond movie with Spectre behind the scenes.
Yeah,
because,
right.
well, might actually be true.
We need another good James Bond movie. The last couple haven't been that good.
Yeah, I hear you. But, of course, a lot of this, as far as what we do, is going to either impact the midterms, or certainly, I'm sure it's in the back of President Trump's mind about all of that kind of stuff. But here's the one thing, Ted, that I really I have to laugh at. Don't get me wrong. I want gas prices to go down as well. But when the Democrats start talking about gas prices, it makes me want to laugh in a way like the energy secretary under Joe Biden actually did laugh. I want to play this quick snippet because I think it's important to get this in perspective when you hear Democrats actually talking about lowering gas prices. Check this out.
Michigan, it is $2.89 a gallon. I guess that's better than in California. What is the Granholm plan to increase oil production in America?
Oh my God. That is hilarious. Would that I had the magic wand on this. As you know, of course, oil is a global market. It is controlled by a cartel. That cartel is called OPEC, and they made a decision yesterday that they were not going to increase beyond what they were already planning.
I mean, Ted, she's laughing about gas prices.
83.
She literally says in that video and others that the president has nothing to do with gas prices and all of that. And she's talking about OPEC, which has basically been destroyed to a certain extent under this, and in a positive way. But I mean, when you hear the Democrats talk about gas prices, here's one more thing, Ted, and I'll turn it back to you. The UN kind of put out a statement the other day about climate change that basically admitted that a lot of the data was wrong and it's not near what they said it was and all that. And people are saying, well, finally. But see, I got another theory about that, Ted, as you can imagine. I think one of the reasons they put that out there is so the liberal progressives can talk about gas prices without sounding like hypocrites, because if they start talking about lowering gas prices, we use more fuel, and that adds to climate change. So climate change is not a big issue now because they want to focus on gas prices and destroying America. That's
absolutely. And Al Gore came out and said, warming is over. We're going into freezing. So it is still climate change. Couple things here. The day Biden took office, he made the attack on fossil fuels. Gas shot up immediately, and it never came back down until Trump got in there. And then Trump, when he went into Iran, gas prices shot up. They're higher now than they were under Biden, unfortunately, in several parts of the country. And so presidential policies and actions can affect the gas price. The Secretary of Energy, what was her name, Relindo? She's absolutely right.
Yeah,
The price is controlled on a world market, but there are factors that come in there. And you were saying people want gas prices to come down. That's really what they're focused on. We need to look beyond our generation, John, with this Iran war. It's not just gas prices for the now. What's the future going to be 20 years from now? What's the ramifications or the fallout from what we're doing in Iran today? What 20 years from now, how that's going to affect your grandkids? How's that going to affect the next generation of Americans? That's where we need to start looking as Americans and our leaders in Congress. We need to be projecting down the road of every action we do today. I heard a long time ago, where you're at today is from decisions you made 3 to 5 years ago. Where you'll be 3 to 5 years from now are based on decisions you make today. So these decisions that the government is making, Trump now in the White House, those decisions are going to have effects down the road. Is this where we want to go? And can anybody predict that? And that's where I think we need to do a lot better job as we elect people in government that have a long-term vision. Because where we're going right now is not a good thing. I mean, they're talking about bringing out a $250 bill. Have you seen that? And they want to put Trump's picture on there. I don't think you do put them on there until they're a dead president. A $250 bill. Why do you need a $250 bill? Because of the price of the dollar has been devalued so much over the last 100 years that it takes $250 to buy something that probably cost $50 before. And so, yeah, you need to carry that around so you don't have to have a bunch of George Washington's, dollar bills in your pocket. Those are the things that government should really be looking at for the future, 50 years from now, not the temporary high prices of gas, which nobody likes.
Yeah, well, it's kind of, I guess it's a sign of the times beyond just Donald Trump with the 250. But we're doing away with the penny, and we're maybe increasing the currency to 250. It kind of shows the sign of the times, man.
It really does.
Speaking of the midterms, there was some interesting news coming out of Texas that just had their primary. People were wondering about the Trump endorsement and all that. Well, Ken Paxton, whether you like it or not, is another story, but he absolutely crushed John Cornyn.
He really
Ken
did.
Paxton got 63.8%, basically 64% of the vote to Cornyn's 36.2%. And clearly the Trump factor was some of it, no doubt about it. Any thoughts on that particular race, Ted?
Yeah, it just, you look at all the garbage Paxton went through, and he still won against Cornyn, Cornyn's been there, I think, almost 3 decades now, and it's time for him to go. He really should. But I look at the candidates running, is that the most qualified? You look at down in South Florida, in the Naples, taking Byron Donalds, you've got Madison Cawthorn that was out of the Carolinas that got pretty much run out of Congress. He's running. And then I think it's Chris Collins out of New York that went to jail for insider trading. And those are the 2 running on the Republican ticket. So I'm just happy to see the other one that you're going to bring up leaving Congress. But as far as Ken Paxton, he's in there. I hope he beats Tallarico because that guy is a dangerous liberal progressive, more so than some of the other ones already in office. We don't need another one of those. And I hope the people of Texas are smart enough and don't invite him in.
Well, now it sets up a general election between Ken Paxton and this James Tallarico, who we've talked about before. And of course, I've heard people say that they still think Paxton's going to win, but it's going to cost like $100 million. Whereas if Cornyn had been running, it would have been a lot less. Of course, Cornyn has come out and said he's 100% behind the Republican, because I don't see how anybody could be for Tallarico. But of course, he'll get quite a few votes. So
that's the gentleman thing to do for Cornyn to do that.
Any thoughts on that matchup?
Well, I just think that's the very gentleman thing for Cornyn to come out and congratulate Paxton, and it says, I'll support you. The Tallarico, I mean, again, you got uber left progressivism versus you're talking about how people want to get back to some normalcy. So you've got a guy that's supposedly an adulterer, is taking bribes and all these things that he got. He didn't get hung on any of those charges, but those are charges. So you've got a choice between that and a liberal progressive that is a seminary or a missionary, not a missionary, but he's a preacher, and he's talking things that aren't true about biblical teachings, that men and women basically can be one and the same, and you can't. It's impossible. It wasn't designed that way. So those are your choices, and it's kind of like voting for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump in his first election. Were they my favorite candidates? Absolutely not. But I'd take Donald Trump 100 times over Hillary Clinton. And so that's where America, a lot of times we don't get the best candidate. That one, we kind of get presented these things, and the machine worked to get Paxton in there. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, well, Ted, there was some good news beyond how you feel about that particular race coming out of Texas. And
right.
That is that this gentleman right here, none other than Al Green, and I'm not talking about Al Green, the singer, but Al Green, the cane, that guy. Did you serve with him, by the way, Ted? Because he's out now.
I did. We called him the Wolf Man because he's got the ponytail and his face was always, the beard all over his face. He was a comical figure in Congress, just a loud mouth. I don't know if he ever accomplished much. We did work on. We had a mutual constituent that was arrested in Vietnam, and we worked together to get that guy released, and we did. But other than that, I had not much use for Al Green.
Well, and of course, Jasmine Crockett.
Apparently, Texas didn't
she's
either.
not going to be in Congress because she lost earlier in her primary to actually that Tallarico fella beat her. But there's another
racist,
piece of good news. We talked about this gal last week, that Maureen Galindo. She lost in the Democratic primary, and she's the one that wanted to put basically Jews in prison and turn ICE facilities into castration centers. But here's the thing people need to understand. As vile as she was, and there were some Democrats who came out and I think trying to save their own behind, spoke out against her, but she still got 39.5% of the vote, which was all Democrats. I won't make people understand that. That is Democrats. So 40% basically of the Democrats in that district voted for the worst of the worst, which doesn't give you much hope. I'm not talking about Texas, but in general, to going back to what we talked about at the top of the show, that the rank and file Democrats are going to change their ways because you got 40% voting for this lunatic lady.
Yeah, really. I mean, that just shows you, and you get choices, and if you're a Democrat, you're going to vote Democrat. But I think it's time where people. That's why you're seeing the independents grow, and I think it's time you're going to see people get behind a different type of candidate. We were down at the local watering. No, it wasn't watering hole. It was the pool, and I was talking to somebody, and politics came up, and my background came up, and she goes, "Well, I'm from Michigan, and I lean to the left." I says, "Great, you're an American, right?" She goes, "Well, yeah." And we've got to get back to not liberal or conservative, any of that. Let's be Americans for a season here. Let's get the ship back on track. And you can be as liberal as you want, but don't change the course of the ship, because we are going this way, and that direction is to preserve the constitutional founding principles and our core values, and preserve the Constitution that protects all that. So you can be as liberal as you want over there, but just don't screw up the charts of where the ship is going.
Yeah, well, we're just about out of time. But before we go, I want to bring up something very quickly that kind of broke a little bit late yesterday and overnight. I don't know if you saw this or not, but Jill Biden, of course, she wrote this book, and she was on CBS promoting it yesterday. And she was asked about the debate performance that obviously was a turning point for the Biden administration against Trump. And she was asked if she thought that Joe was essentially losing it and that kind of thing. And check this out, Ted. She said that when she was watching it herself, now she's backstage at that time, that she thought that Joe, her husband, possibly was having a stroke, or that he had been potentially drugged. And here's the problem I have with that. If true, when it was over, the next thing she did was take the dude to a Waffle House. I mean, God, man, can you imagine if your wife, and I'm not trying to make it personal, but if your wife thought you were came in right now and thought you were having a stroke and said, "I think you might be having a stroke, Ted, but oh, by the way, we're not going to call 911. We're going to go to the Waffle House." I mean, it's crazy.
Let's get you 2 eggs over easy with some hash browns scattered, smothered, and covered, and lots of bacon. Yeah, and she's a doctor. I mean, she should know better than this, although she's not a medical doctor. And she's the one. Remember this? Right after that debate, the press conference. Oh, Joe, you did so good. You were great. And she's like, she must have watched something different. I don't know. It was terrible, and she is just trying to survive. There's the stories out that she wanted Joe to win because then she could take over as president.
Yeah,
and control it.
And you're right. What she talked about right after that, they went to a little rally thing, like you're saying. And what got me is how she says, Joe, you did great. You answered every question. I mean, it sounds like something you might say to a 5-year-old for a kindergarten graduation that gave some little talk. You did great. You did. I mean, was there anybody who, including her, that actually thought he did great? Because she also said that she whispered to him immediately after the stage that he asked her, did I really screwed up, didn't I? And she said, yeah, you did. I mean, so you put all that together. I mean, what does it say? The lady only cared about her getting back in the White House, possibly running it herself. She certainly don't give two hoots about Joe Biden if what she's saying is true.
It really is. And again, this is where elections matter. That's why we're out here. We're passionate about our country, to educate people, to let you know what's going on, to motivate you and to activate you. These elections are coming up. Trump, everything he's done it's been put on pause. If you look at Gavin Newsom, and I don't agree with what Trump wants to do with this settlement with the IRS, taxpayers' money, and create a fund for people that have been wrongly justified by the government. I think we have courts, the legal system to do that. But Gavin Newsom said that anybody that wins any settlement out of that, he's going to tax it at 100%. So that's what you get if you go with the progressives in this country, or you get the Zohran Madanis that are going to tax people just for being rich, or you're going to get the AOC says nobody makes $1 billion. And of course, the revolution was started by billionaires. You're going to get those kind of people. There is no normalcy in that. I want God, country, and family. I want the 4th of July. I want to have picnics out there and fireworks and corn on the cob and watermelon, fried chicken, and all that stuff. And see the American flag flow and sung to. Memorial Day out here, right next to my house, people were fishing on Memorial Day, and they were playing Lee Greenwood, God Bless America. And they had American flags on their boats. And when it got done, we stood up and we clapped for them and they gave the thumbs up. That's America. That's what people want. They don't want all this other garbage going on, John. And that's why we're here, right?
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for the show today. We hope you enjoyed it. Please like what we're doing, share what we're doing far and wide. Give your grandchildren and kids a homework assignment to watch our show. Ted, bent rods and tight lines to you. I'm going fishing, starting again next week. But take us out, sir.
No, we appreciate you watching, and support our sponsors. Archer Automotive, open Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Call for an appointment, 352-495-2485, and tell them you heard about them through the Political Pirate Podcast with John and Ted. And you guys have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday. God bless.
Peace out, everybody.